Hello, we are discussing about GATE 2009 ECE paper and the topic is related to analog circuits. Look at the circuit diagram. The circuit diagram given is a stable multivibrator circuit. In that one, which properties of V0 of t depends on R2? A. Only the frequency. B. Only the amplitude. C. Both amplitude and frequency. D. None. So, it is a stable multivibrator circuit. A stable multivibrator circuit produces square wave output. So V0 of t is going to be a square wave output. It will be giving the square wave output, and the magnitude of the square wave output is going to be depending on the operation of this op amp. Now here op amp in this stable multivibrator acts as comparator. Op amp acts as comparator. So comparator operation, the operation of comparator is nothing but just it compares the both the input signals, whichever is going to be more positive. Based on that, the output may be at either plus V saturation or at minus V saturation. Okay, now look at this one. There are two inputs are attached, that is nothing but voltage at non-inverting terminal made as V minus, and voltage at inverting terminal V minus, voltage at non-inverting terminal V plus. So out of these two things, whichever dominates, based on that one, the output may be either plus V saturation or minus V saturation. Like this, if the non-inverting terminal voltage dominates over the inverting terminal voltage, that is, if non-inverting terminal voltage is more positive than inverting terminal voltage, that we can call it as dominating, then output will be at plus V saturation. Okay, otherwise if V minus, that is inverting terminal voltage, is dominates over non-inverting terminal voltage, that is inverting terminal voltage is more positive than non-inverting terminal voltage, then V0 is equal to minus V saturation. So based on the input signal voltages, it is comparing them, and the output will be always either plus V saturation or minus V saturation. So this only compares the magnitudes. Okay, and it will give a static outputs as plus V saturation or minus V saturation irrespective of circuit components. That implies nothing but it doesn't depend on R2 value. So amplitude, that is amplitude of a stable multivibrator, okay, doesn't depend on R2, okay. So next, if you are going with a square wave like this, let us assume this is going to be the output we are going to get, for example. So how much is going to be the on period, how much is going to be the off period? Okay, how much time it will be at plus V saturation and how much time it will be at minus V saturation. This is what minus V saturation. So output signal is going to be looks like this one, square wave with maximum as plus V saturation and minimum of minus V saturation, and how much time it is at plus V saturation or the output is going to be at minus V saturation, that depends on the capacitor. Okay, how it is going to be charging and how it is discharging. So the total output, how much time, the T on and T off are going to be based on the capacitor charging and discharging times. Okay, capacitor charges towards plus V saturation through R1 R2, okay, and this C, and capacitor discharges towards minus V saturation through the same path R1 R2 and C. So the time constant for charging as well as time constant for discharging, that implies nothing but time constant for charging as well as discharging the capacitor. Time constant tau for charging and discharging is going to be R1 plus R2 because both the resistances are in series, and this is what the capacitor. So this is what tau, time constant at which Okay, at what rate the capacitor is charging, at what rate the capacitor discharging. It is based on the time constant, and the time constant is given as R1 plus R2 into C. Okay, now T on, since the time constant is same for on and off period, so the T on is also equal to T off, which is nothing but 0.69 into R1 plus R2 into C. If you are going with T on and T off, that implies nothing but total time. Total time period is nothing but T on plus T off. That implies nothing but 2 times of this value, which is nothing but 1.38 times of R1 plus R2 into C, and the frequency of this signal is nothing but 1 by T. So 1 by T is nothing but, since total time period depending on R2, frequency also depends on R2. So amplitude of this astable multivibrator doesn't depend on R2, but frequency depends on R2. Only frequency depends on R2 but not magnitude. That implies nothing but the right answer for this question is A itself. Okay. For the astable multivibrator circuit, V0 of T depends on R2 only in case of frequency, not in case of amplitude. Thank you.